So what you may not know about me is that when I first got out of NYU and I got my first job in the movie business, it was working on Rocky at United Artists.
Oh my goodness! What were you doing on the film?
I was an assistant, literally a little girl assistant in the publicity department.
That's awesome.
And one of the first things they did on my first day was pull me into the marketing office and show me the first poster and see if I liked it or not.
And what was the first poster?
It was a black. It was close. It was the black and
Okay.
white. Yeah. And then it hadn't opened yet, right? We were working on it for months. This was back in the days when people. First of all, the first Rocky was an independent film.
Right.
It was very much Stallone's creation. He wrote it and started, but no one knew who he was.
Right.
And it was carefully nurtured
Right.
to become an Oscar winner. Right?
Right.
So
it's a good job you guys did.
but it took a lot of, it was when you nurtured things very carefully. It wasn't a wide release. It wasn't something that had to open big. It took months to get
to take off.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, but Stallone would wander the corridors, and everybody in the building knew he was a star before the movie came out. Yeah. Because you could tell by the way the secretaries responded to him and stuff,
Yeah, they would blush a little bit and get.
Yeah. So this watching your movie really blew my mind because when you work on a movie like that, you've seen it a million times. You know the beats. You know exactly what the structure is, and so it fascinates me the way you were able to take a world that had been created, stay true to that world, and yet bring an entirely new sensibility to it, and this intensely powerful father-daughter story. Father-son.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, man. Like I think that
So the question for you as a screenwriter, because this was your idea, you came up with this, was what was the balancing in terms of making it true to Stallone and then making it true to you?
Right. Well, I'm a big Rocky fan. I kind of inherited my love for those movies through my love for my father, who was a Rocky fan, and we watched those movies together. So I can't remember not knowing who Rocky was. We would always buy him the box set, every time one came out. So like when we were able to afford a VCR, we bought the box set for my dad, 1 through 5, on VHS. So we would watch those all the time. And so I knew the movies, really well. I knew the world really well, the characters, and obviously not as well as Sly, because he invented all that stuff, but as well as somebody who was an outsider could know him, I knew him, and for me, Rocky was like my dad's hero. So, when I was coming out of film school, and my dad got sick, he had been diagnosed with a neuromuscular condition, where he was losing the ability to use his skeletal muscles, and they thought that it could be ALS or PMA, these things that could take his life in a short amount of time. That emotional, that emotion. I went through an emotional crisis, man, and out of that, kind of came up with this idea, this of this story, where a young guy interacts with basically my dad's hero, at a time in his life where he's aging and dealing with his own mortality in a way that we'd never seen him deal with it before. It was really kind of about me and my dad. And I think that as much as myself that I could bring to the story, through coming up with the idea, through writing it with my buddy Aaron, and directing it and editing it, and as much as I could bring in my own personal experience, really with my dad, my relationship with him kind of as a heartbeat for the creative tendencies there. I tried to bring there, and it was great having Irwin Winkler and Bob Charoff before he passed away, and having Sly obviously,
well,
there.
Let's get the beats of that. You wrote? Did you write it on spec?
No. I wrote it with MGM. So this is how everything worked out.
How did you persuade them to let you write it?
It wasn't really a persuasion on MGM's MGM was very eager and enthusiastic once we brought them the idea. You know,
and who is we?
Pitched it. It was like this. So, I came up with the idea before I rolled cameras on Fruitvale because my dad was kind of sick at that time. I called my buddy Aaron Covington, who I went to film school with. We were roommates, you know, and said, hey, you know, would you want to write this with me? It's the take on it, you know, because I know I wanted to have somebody involved while I was making Fruitvale, because that was kind of a moving train at that point. And at that time, it was like a spec thing, and we were right. That we didn't imagine anybody wanting to really make it, you know what I mean? But it'd be something cool that we'll have, and we'll like maybe put it on the internet or something, you know what I mean? Or you know, use it as another, you know, writing sample or something, you know. And then what happened was with Fruitvale, I got into the Sundance Labs, went to the Sundance Labs and got an agent there named Craig Castell, who's a really you know, serious agent, man, for William Morris Endeavor. Represents a lot of great clients. And then through Craig, I met with Charles King, who was also a very heavy agent at William and Morris. And their whole thing was, you know, Fruitvale is great. You know, we'll help you get this going. But what else do you want to, you know, what else do you have? What else do you want to do? And because this idea for Creed was fresh on my mind at the time, I told them about it. And then Charles and Craig were kind of like, hey man, go tell that same pitch you just gave us, give that to Adam Vinnick, who was Stallone's hands-on agent and also the head of the motion picture, you know, at William & Morris. So I met Vinnick, pitched him in his office in LA, and then he was like, man, pitch it to this guy, and it was Kevin King Templeton, who was Sly's former business partner, and I pitched him, and then they were like, look man, Sly is, you know, he the door's kind of shut on Rocky Balboa for him creatively, but you know, this story is interesting. You know, we'll talk to him. At this point, I hadn't made Fruitvale yet. We were still casting. You know, I know Mike would play the lead. He and I had become close, but we hadn't found anybody else yet. You know, Octavia hadn't signed on yet. We were in a real interesting position at the time. So then I, you know, kept going with Fruitvale. Got to the point where we were prepping it. We were getting ready to shoot in Oakland. And then Vinnick gives me a call, and he said, hey, man, come down to LA tomorrow. Sly's got an hour he wants to see you. So I had to, like, figure out a way to get away from prep for, like, half a day. Went down to Los Angeles. You know, my buddy Brian Brown was one of my friends from film school, picked me up from the airport, rushed me to Sly's office, and I went in and pitched him. And that's how Sly kind of became aware of it, you know, and then...
What kind of questions did he ask you?
Man, he didn't ask a whole lot. You know, like, he just kind of listened. You know, Sly's a listener, man. You know, when you got him engaged, you know, he's listening. He's not asking a whole lot of stuff. You know, so you know, we met, we talked, and I told him about my dad. You know, I told him about you know, me being a Rocky fan, him being a Rocky fan, him watching those movies with his mom when she was sick and dying of cancer. You know, and then him watching them with me and my little brothers as a tradition, and then my father getting sick and me coming up with this idea, you know, and I told him about how I saw Apollo Creed and how every other black man in my community I knew who saw Apollo Creed as a hero, and we talked about that, and you know, he asked a few questions about me, but what I remember from the meeting was just how charismatic he was, you know, and how different he was from the characters that I had seen him play.
You maybe forgot that he was a screenwriter.
I mean, he's so much more than that. I mean, I think the thing
he's
about...
a lot like you. If you go back to who he was in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, we got a lot in common, man. Like
athletic,
you know,
screenwriter.
Yeah.
But an outsider, someone who came in who
absolutely.
hadn't necessarily been anointed
absolutely.
as a member of the
absolutely.
community.
As somebody who
felt like they had to prove themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean to put.
No, it's true. No, it's very true. Because you're knowledgeable about this stuff. Haven't dealt with him at that point in his career. I mean, I think that, you know, the thing for me was just that what I got from him when I met him was the same feelings that I had when I met Mike for the first time. When you meet an actor that has that it factor, that has that charisma, you know, it does something to you. You know what I mean? And at that point, I was still early in my career as a filmmaker. At that point, I still am today, but I know that feeling though. I know that feeling of saying, holy smokes, like this dude is like the real deal. You know, and I remember having that and then becoming very excited at the idea of he and Mike being in a film together. Being excited at the idea of him being able to put all of his energy in a performance, not having to worry about, not having to wear all the other hats he usually wears when he makes something.
That's true.
Yeah.
So when did he commit to you?
It took him a while, man. Like he would green light certain processes. You know, he would say, all right, cool. You know, let's go move forward with the script.
So who paid for the script?
MGM. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was MGM. It was Glickman. It was Gary Barber, Adam Rosenberg. It was those guys, and they were very excited about it. You know, I didn't talk to them until after Fruitvale was made and had come out.
When you first told me about it, I have to say my first instinct was, this is amazingly commercial. This is such a great idea. I'm sure everyone else had the same reaction.
Not always, man. It depends. You know, like with MGM, that was the reaction. You know, and I pitched them. We sat down and talked, and it was a long process. With Irwin. Irwin was excited. You know, but some people, when I was telling them that was what I was doing next, you know, oftentimes they wouldn't understand it. Oftentimes people thought that it was that MGM had hired me to do.
I've had to correct some people on
right.
that assumption.
Right.
Because they're so cynical
right.
that they assume that this is just another notch on the sequel belt.
Right. Which isn't what it.
Not at all. I understood from what you told me. This was a very heartfelt,
very personal thing. Very personal movie. Yeah. And so I was excited that the studios would be interested in doing it. To be honest with you, and Sly took the longest. You know, because it's so personal for him. You know, the Rocky movies are very personal for him, and they reflect. You know, though that character is not like Sly at all. You know what I'm saying? In many ways, some of the qualities of Rocky are the opposite of who Sly is as a person.
I wonder if it was like putting an old sweater on. He seemed to inhabit it so comfortably.
Yeah, but he's. I mean, at this point, it was very much. Sly is at a very interesting moment in his life, man. Like where he is very emotionally raw right now. You know what I mean? Like in many ways, and he's such a talented actor, man. Like that I was just blown away from working with him. You know, and his work ethic is you know, I had never met somebody who worked as hard as Mike as an actor, and I met him in Sly. Sly could match Mike's work ethic. You know what I mean? Not in terms of what Mike had to do physically in the amount of days that he shot and all that stuff. I mean, Mike, you know, did more. He was leading the movie, but Mike's, you know, 40 years, you know, younger. You know what I mean? 40 years younger than Sly. So, you know, talk about a 68-year-old dude who's showing up in the cold, you know, every day, and shows up for a day where we're shooting 4 pages, and he's got 10 pages of character work that he did the night before, and he's got 100 questions about ways to go, you know, and that was what it was with him every day. It was amazing, and it was energizing, you know. And he's so talented. I can't wait to see what he does next. To be honest with you, man.
No, maybe there's going to be more openings. I mean, these guys end up doing these Expendables sequels, you know. Yeah. I mean, come on, Harrison Ford is doing an Expendable sequel. Yeah.
I mean, he definitely does stuff that doesn't show his full potential, I would say.
No,
you know?
this was wonderful, and it was wonderful because you as I said, you recreated the world. So how much did he give you feedback, notes?
Yeah, I mean, he's also a producer on the film. You know, he was comfortable taking a back seat here, which was a big thing. He had written all of the scripts, every single last one for these types of films. But I think what really made him excited was seeing this from the millennial perspective. You know what I mean? He was excited about seeing this story from my perspective, from Aaron, my co-writer's perspective. You know what I mean? You know, we both, you know, born after Rocky IV was made. You know, and he would give notes, man. A lot of his notes came from knowing the boxing world really intimately. He would give notes that were really based on Rocky's character. Like I would say, you know, for instance, when Adonis moves in with Rocky, you know, I think the first draft we had, you know, Rocky was throwing water on Adonis to wake him up. You know, and we were talking. He's like, I don't know if Rocky would do that. You know, and we talk about it. I'm like, well, how would Rocky wake Adonis up? We say, man, he would probably play old records. You know, and that's how that scene comes to life. You know what I mean? It becomes something totally different and unique because he knows that character so well. And I was never, you know, I never wanted to be afraid of that as a writer and as a director to use this 40-year-old, you know, well of resource. You know what I mean? That he had from working on this character and development and all of that shading. You know, we wanted to stand right on top of that and shine a light on some different parts of that character and shine a light on different parts of a you know, this unconventional, you know, kind of father-son relationship.
Did he resist the idea of being, you know, ill or?
Yeah, it was something that definitely was it was complicated for him to wrap his mind around. You know,
because he's basically playing the Burgess Meredith part.
Right, and I mean, yeah, and even in Rocky 1, there's no references to Burgess Meredith's mortality. You know, he's just an older guy. Like he never gets sick, or he never is threatened that he could die or anything like that. You know, he's just an old gym dude. You know, with this, and it was very important to me because going back to my relationship, I thought I was gonna lose my dad. You know what I'm saying? I thought that you know that I wouldn't have him anymore, and it was very important for a point in Adonis's journey in this movie for him to fear that same thing for Rocky. You know.
Did you have a sense as you were writing this that this would fulfill on some level a racial healing for the people seeing it?
Nah, I didn't feel like that. I thought that I mean, because that's so lofty, man. Like I would say. I mean, I knew that it's rare that you see characters like Adonis. You know, I know that, and Bianca for that matter. You know, I know that those characters aren't at a premium in movies that get released on, you know, 3,000 screens.
You must be a good director because Tessa Thompson's way better than she was in Dear White People.
Oh man,
I liked her in that. I did, but this is so much better.
Yeah, I love that movie, man, and I'm close with
Justin.
I'm close with Justin. You know, and I met Tessa the night of Dear White People's premiere at Sundance. I met her at an after party, you know, in Utah, and it was really, you know, once again with me when I meet actors, you know, I'm always curious of how much of themselves are they bringing to these roles, and how much of it is their skill set as an actor. You know, I don't judge off either one. You know what I'm saying? Like, because if a great performance is a great performance, but it's always interesting when you meet somebody who's totally different from the role that they just thoroughly convinced you that was real. You know, I had that feeling with Sly, and with Tessa, meeting her right after she played that character, it was really interesting because I realized, oh yeah, she's not, you know, there's qualities of her that are like that, but she's not like that at all.
So what finally was the most challenging in terms of the actual execution of the movie for you?
Oh, the most challenging. I would say, well, it all was challenging in its own ways. I would say, for me, you know, it was actually working in another place, like, cause my last feature film I made at home.
So Philadelphia was foreign country for you.
It was, but it wasn't. You know, it has a lot of similarities to Oakland. It has a lot of similarities to the Bay Area, but it has some things that are very, very starkly different. You know, number one was the weather. You know what I mean? It was snowing like crazy while we were there, and I'm a Cali boy, man. So just having to deal with that element, and the element of you know, you want to shoot outside, but all of a sudden it's a blizzard. You know what I mean? What do we do?
What about that single shot?
Yeah, that was special, man. You know, we had a lot of wonders in the film, but that one was one that was very, very important for the story, and we had to find a way to do it right, like intense amount of teamwork. You know, I never felt like a football coach. You know what I mean? So much than that day with all the elements that had to come together in those takes, and all the work that needed to go leading up to it. You know, but it was really, really fun. That was probably the funnest day we had, man. It was like a party that day because everybody was in it, and everybody knew that every moment had to be right. Even the extras, you know, we had 300 Philadelphia locals there, and they were energized because it was Sly's first day on set. You know, And so everybody was fired up. And I remember in the take that we used in the film, it was the first one that we nailed, the first one that we got right. And when Tessa jumps into the ring, as Bianca, she's so excited that she pushes Mike. She shoves him because she's so excited that they nailed the choreography. And then she immediately apologizes to him because Mike stays in it, and he's acting like he's still beat up. You know, and we ended up using that. And Rocky was, Sly was super excited. And all of that was, it worked for the character. But they were really fired up because it took us like 10 tries to get this complicated shot. We nailed it. So everybody was just losing their minds and still staying in character. So
How
I was
long
really
is
excited.
that shot?
Oh man, that's a good question. I want to say it's like 4 minutes, maybe 4.5 minutes.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
We got to go now, I'm afraid. All right, here we go.